So, Tucker Carlson had a really good show the other
Israel's
day.
policy.
He talks about a number of things. We're not going to rush the whole thing, but I want to get at least get a segment when he brings in. Um, yeah, there it is. After Nikki Haley comment, there we go. And then we're going to talk a little bit about that.
And how we encourage Israel to respond to the horrifying Hamas attacks. Wisdom and long-term thinking are essential, but you will not be surprised to learn that is not what we are getting. Watch this person, for example, who happens to be the media's pick for president of the United States.
This is not just an attack on Israel. This is an attack on America because they hate us just as much. And what we have to understand is this is the reason that we have to unite around making sure our enemies do not hurt our friends. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends, just like we needed them on 9/11. That's why Ukraine needs us when Russia's doing this. That's why Israel needs us when Hamas and Iran are doing this. And I'll say this to Prime Minister Netanyahu, finish them. Finish them. Hamas did this. You know Iran's behind it. Finish them. They should have hell to pay for what they've just done.
This was an attack on America, she says, when in fact it was not. And for that reason, we must, quote, finish Iran, a nation of nearly 90 million people. What are we watching here? This is not sober leadership.
I heard you. Go ahead. I heard you breathing heavy.
Oh man, she's just stoking the fire. I mean, it's like poking the bear. Why would anybody do that?
Question.
It makes no sense.
Why do, and it's an honest question. Why do we as Americans feel the need to always be on the side of Israel about every issues? I mean, nobody's saying they deserve what's going on. That's not the point of my question.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we feel the need to always be helping Israel? Is it because of our religious perspective? Is it because of, how do we see the Jews in Bible prophecy? I don't know. I would like to know, is it relationship? What's the geopolitical?
Genuinely, I think in full context, if you actually do enough study, I think that's what it may be, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah. I wonder, is there some geopolitical perspective or either some kind of relational thing happening behind the scene? Because it seems like we lean toward Israel on every single thing. Or is that maybe we feel sorry for what happened during the Holocaust and everything? Kind of like making sure we are protecting them as a supposed minority, I should say.
That could be too, or it could be all the above.
They are. Just asking. I'm asking an honest question because I don't think the Jews are perfect in everything either. I think there's stuff they do that I'm like,
I mean, even Jesus called them out on their wrongdoings. I mean,
absolutely.
Look at what he did in the temple when they were turned it into a marketplace.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I don't. And her calling them out like that is, they want to talk about the war machine and war propaganda and all this other stuff, the industrial war complex, whatever thing. They always talk about that's their big thing on the left is, we don't want to support the war industrial complex, whatever thing they spew about that. But
she does.
That's exactly what they're doing. It's like, hello, how contradictory can you be?
It's ridiculous.
I don't understand. You're saying one thing, but then doing something completely different.
Mercy.
Calling for the genocide of an entire country is not conducive to what you're saying you stand for.
Not at all.
It just close. Doesn't add up. 2 and 2 is not making 4 here.
Yeah. He's gonna bring up next Lindsey Graham as well. Listen carefully.
He's a child, and this is the tantrum of a child. Ignorant, not on a nation of nearly 90 million people. What are we watching here? This is not sober leadership. She's a child, and this is the tantrum of a child. Ignorant, cocksure, bloodthirsty. Yet no one in Washington scolded her for it. In fact, they aped her hysteria. Here's fellow neocon Lindsey Graham just spelling it out and calling for the bombing of Iran.
So I've been on the phone all day to the Mideast, and I've told our allies and people with connections to Iran, what I would do, I would tell Iran that if Hezbollah attacks Israel, we're going to come after you, the Iranians, and have a coordinated effort between the United States and Israel to put Iran out of the oil business by destroying their refineries. There are 4 major refineries in Iran. They're fixed targets. If Hezbollah attacks Israel, I would make Iran pay a heavy price.
What exactly would happen to the United
so
States
ridiculous, yo.
Oh my word.
It's like adding fuel to the fire. You don't think this is gonna make matters worse?
And then watch the gas prices skyrocket.
That's what I was gonna say. We already close our own oil refineries. We close. We don't have those pipelines, so we already we are begging for oil.
What was my guy John Lovell saying? You know, in cases like this, watch resources get scarce, watch, you know, prices go up. Hard times are going to get even harder because, you know, things are going to get more scarce and more expensive as they go.
Yeah.
Wow. These people have lost the script.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Okay, it was originally religion related, and now I think it's because they have nuclear weapons. Okay,
That could be.
That could be too as well.
But I think it's that we have such deep ties with them, and possibly because of certain banking systems and things like that, that we may continue our ties with them. And I think there's things going on behind the scenes that we can't talk about here.
Absolutely. Vegas, it's gotta get worse before it gets better. From the perspective of what? What's the context of your message here? I would like to hear the context before we comment. Yeah, I know. What a joke. Justify what they did. Going back to Tucker Carlson, we gotta. I'm gonna pinch those 2 videos together. Listen to what he says here.
Declared war on Iran and started blowing up their infrastructure. Lindsey Graham started blowing up their infrastructure. Lindsey Graham has no clue what would happen. He hasn't thought it through. He's almost 70 years old and he has no children. He doesn't care. But neither, amazingly, do most of his colleagues in Washington. They're as reckless as he is. Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw took to social media to call for what he described as a war to end all wars, as if there is such a thing. But of course, there isn't such a thing. Wars beget more war. The bigger the conflict, the uglier and longer lasting the consequences. See World War I for details. These are not complex observations, but they seem lost on our leadership class. Alone among candidates running for the Republican nomination for president, Vivek Ramaswamy dared to suggest that actually going to war with Iran might not be in America's national interest. And for saying that, Mike Pence immediately denounced him as gutless and unpatriotic or something. But we thought it might be worth hearing more. Vivek Ramaswamy joins us now. Vivek, thanks so much for coming on. So if I'm reading this correctly, you suggested, while offering what seemed like real sympathy to the Israeli people, and to the many murdered there 2 days ago, you noted that maybe it's not in America's best long-term interest to declare war on Iran. Is that what you said?
I actually said this long before this crisis when people were thinking clear-headedly. And I just want to say a couple of things that are obvious but important, Tucker. I mean, what happened against Israel, you said it, I believe it. It is barbaric. It is medieval. Yeah. It is wrong. And Israel as a nation absolutely has the right to self-defense, to its own national existence. And I think they should have our moral and diplomatic support as an ally. But there's one element of this that nobody's talking about. What the hell went wrong with U.S. and Israeli intelligence and the Israeli defense that allowed this to happen? Everybody seems to be punting that as a question for later. I think it's a question for now if you're Israel. I mean, look, I think that Nikki Haley, I disagree with you a little bit there. I don't think she's a child. I think that she is somebody who is, like many politicians, in a position to get wealthier from war. Look at the military contracting business and otherwise. But put that to one side. The message that I would send would be very different. Get to the bottom of what allowed this gaping hole of intelligence and defense to even happen before feeding that same beast. If a doctor told you his job was to keep you from getting cancer and then you got that cancer, don't go trust that same doctor to remove your tumor. They don't let airplanes, when they crash, the pilots or the people who crash the airplane, that airliner is not the one who reviews the black box. And so I think those answers have to come now. That's not a question for later. And I think one of the learnings for the U.S., I think there's a lot of learnings for the U.S., Tucker, but one of the learnings is if that establishment can get it wrong in Israel from a U.S. perspective, that could happen right here at home. And if anything, as an ally, one of the things that we need to wake up to is that we're vulnerable here in the United States to the same. And so we can do some things to prevent that, secure our border, stop funding. I mean, I think one of the things that's been wrong in the U.S. is we have a bad habit while we're bankrupt funding both sides of wars that should have been avoided in the first place. Look at the money that's indirectly found its way to Hamas, the $6 billion paid to Iran in the recent ransom. That was a disaster. Yet we're effectively now funding both sides of a war that we shouldn't have been in the first place in places like Russia and Ukraine. Even think about how we hampered oil production in the United States and then now has funding, U.S. funding going to Ukraine in fighting back against Russia. It's a bad habit in the United States, and we need leaders here who will look after what advances American interests. And I find what Dan Crenshaw said to be cringeworthy. It is shameful. World War I was supposed to be the war that ended all wars, that got us to World War II. That can't be the way that we run foreign policy. The job of American leaders is to advance American interests. And I think we support Israeli leaders asking what advances and defends Israel as we should, morally and diplomatically. But leaders here need to look after American interests first.
Yeah, he said it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with him. Yeah, the comment Vicky about him being funded by he did answer that. He said this was a loan given by the brother of Soros. Not Soros particularly, but the brother was helping out students to go to school and everything. It was just free money. So it's one thing to say he's gotten free money from a foundation Soros is connected to, but it's another thing to say that he is educated by Soros. That's not correct. You know what I'm saying? Somebody's giving you free money. I don't care. I don't care who they are. I look at it like everything belongs to God. Even the wicked have the Lord's money. So if they're giving you free money for school, you better go to school. So I don't condemn him over that. I think that's one of those arguments that the left brought up against him that I think is very weak. But just saying, that doesn't mean I'm supporting Vivek Ramaswamy. I love me some Trump, so you're not gonna get me off the Trump train, and not anytime soon. Maybe after he wins the election and did his 4 years, that's probably when I start supporting him. So, so we're talking about 5 years later. So, oh man. So, yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add? But I think the situation is sad, man.
Yeah.
No matter which side you look
Absolutely.
at it, it's sad. I know we are on a live stream for a little while. We're talking about these wars and everything, but it's a sad situation.
And I think we've gotten ourselves in quite the pickle and quite the mess with
Yeah.
it because and that's the thing. I think one of the reasons why most other countries have an issue with the U.S. is because we have to make everything about us.
Yeah, we like to police the world. It's like we feel the need to always be the ones being the moral arbiter of society, in a sense, kind of like.
But yet, if we don't, everybody turns to us for help.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the old adage, excuse me, but damned if we do, damned if we don't.
True. That's a
You
problem.
know?
And it seems like every time we put our hands in things get worse.
Mm-hmm.
We don't make things better, Ukraine is gonna.
Well, it depends on who we got leading the country at the time.
Yeah,
too.
I cannot remember anywhere the United States got involved in any war that is outside of the U.S. and it turned out to be a positive thing. I cannot think of it one situation, and I could be wrong. I haven't been able to.
The only time we've ever done anything that actually improved a situation was to avoid war.
Yeah, avoiding has been
which would be during the Reagan administration during the Cuban Missile Crisis,
okay. That makes a lot of sense.
where we actually avoided a war with Russia when they wanted to put intercontinental ballistic missiles in Cuba.
Mm. So avoiding the war has only been the solution, but it seems like every time we put our hands in anything.
Every time we go to war, it just makes matters worse. Or if we
It's
get
crazy.
involved in any way, shape, or form with like funding or sending weapons, it just makes matters worse.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's why I support Trump. You know, he's like, we need to focus on ourselves, let the rest of the world deal with the rest of the world.
That's right. That's right. Simple as that. Take care of your own home. That's all. While worrying about everybody else's home when your home is disarrayed. You know what I'm saying? You take care of your own home, fix your own
Mhm.
issues. This is not to say we should ignore the rest of the world's problem. I just think we can't do it at the expense of our own current condition. It's my issue. Yeah. Goodness, this is this world. Anyway, we do have one more video to get into, and I know